When people talk about modern royals with real power, serious controversy, and red carpet levels of glamour, one name comes up again and again: Sheikha Mozah bint Nasser. To a lot of royal watchers, she's the closest thing Qatar has to a queen, the former emir's wife, the current emir's mother, and the impeccably dressed face of one of the world's most talked about royal families. On one side, you have the image that's been everywhere in recent years: the elegant Sheikha Mozah in her signature turban, perfectly tailored couture, and diamonds that could light up a stadium, sitting in the VIP box at the Qatar World Cup. On the other side, you have the hard reality of the country she represents, a deeply conservative state where homosexuality is criminalized and where the government has faced intense criticism for its links to Islamist movements in the region, including Hamas. She's often described as the enlightened face of a profoundly conservative regime, and that contrast is exactly why she fascinates people. Sheikha Mozah is 63 now, and for decades she has moved at the center of power in Doha. She is the second wife of former emir Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the man who deposed his own father in a bloodless coup in 1995 and transformed Qatar into a huge energy wealth, Al Jazeera, international investments, and major geopolitical ambitions. Sheikha Mozah is the second of his three wives, but she is widely understood to be the most prominent and favored. Dark-eyed, poised, and always immaculate in public, she quickly became the royal the world recognized, even more than many male members of the family. And inside Qatar, her status as both the former emir's spouse and the current emir's mother gives her an authority that most women in the country could never dream of. That contrast is important to understand. On paper, Qatar still holds strict male guardian laws over women. Many Qatari women need permission from a male relative to study abroad, travel, or work in certain roles. Socially and legally, it remains a very conservative society. Yet, Sheikha Mozah moves with a freedom that appears completely different from those rules. She travels constantly, sits alongside global leaders, and dresses in a way that pushes the boundaries of Gulf royal fashion while still technically adhering to local modesty codes. That combination, visible power, polished image, and bold style, is one reason international media outlets have become obsessed with her. She has been compared to Jackie Kennedy and Babe Paley. She made the International Best Dressed list in 2015. Fashion writers gush over her ability to reinterpret Western couture for a conservative Muslim context, especially through her signature turbans and vintage Persol sunglasses, which have inspired countless imitations. There's even a dedicated Instagram fan page, @SheikhaMozahFashion, that exists purely to track her looks. Every public appearance is broken down in detail: which designer she chose, how she styled the headscarf, which diamonds she paired with which gown. That account has attracted hundreds of thousands of followers, many of whom aren't particularly interested in Gulf politics, but are absolutely fascinated by the Queen of Qatar aesthetic. And she doesn't just wear fashion, she buys it, literally. Under her family's watch, Qatar has snapped up some of the most famous names and spaces in global luxury. In 2010, the Qatari royals bought London's iconic Harrods department store for around $1.7 billion. 2 years later, they took control of the legendary Valentino fashion house in a deal reported at more than $857 million. Those acquisitions fit perfectly with the image that surrounds Sheikha Mozah: couture-loving, globally minded, and very comfortable blending soft power with luxury branding. Her wardrobe is as strategic as it is stunning. Brazilian designer Victor Zenck once spoke about working with her, describing her as beautiful, calm, and very sure of what she wants. She asked him to alter designs to add long sleeves where there were short ones and to raise necklines that were originally plunging. She has done the same with vintage Chanel, taking pieces straight off the runway and adapting them to respect Qatari standards of modesty, while still keeping the unmistakable Chanel feel. Alongside Chanel, she regularly wears Jean-Paul Gaultier, Christian Dior, and other big couture names, all reworked to her exact vision.
In an interview with Vogue Arabia, she even admitted that her dressing room is more than just a storage space. She called it her mental treat, her place to unwind. When she's exhausted, she says she'll go through her closets, mix and match looks, adjust pieces, and create new outfits. And she made one thing very clear: she doesn't use a stylist, not because she can't afford one, but because she hasn't found anyone who really understands what she wants. For someone in her position, controlling her own visual message is part of controlling her narrative.
That narrative was front and center during a 2014 state visit to the United Kingdom, which royal and fashion reporters still talk about to this day. During that trip, Sheikha Mozah stepped out in a series of outfits that had the British press comparing her to Jackie O for sheer impact. She wore a Chanel couture suit with dramatic icicle-heeled furry boots that instantly became one of the most shared images from the visit. Designer Julian McDonald even commented that no first lady since Jackie Kennedy had made such waves globally with fashion. She didn't stop there. On one day, she appeared at the UK Parliament in a chrome green Dior skirt suit that stood out like a jewel among darker political uniforms. For a Buckingham Palace banquet, she chose a rich red Valentino gown. When she met British business leaders, she arrived in a sleek black and gold Armani Privé pantsuit. On her final day in London, she wore a burgundy double-breasted jacket handmade in Jean-Paul Gaultier's studio, paired with Cartier jewelry. Each look sent the same message: this is a royal woman who knows exactly how to use fashion as soft power. Paris, of course, is another one of her favorite stages. She is a regular at couture weeks, often photographed arriving at shows and slipping into private fittings. Among her close friends is Bethy Lagarde, the Brazilian socialite and former model who was married to the late Jean-Luc Lagarde, the billionaire owner of the Hachette media empire that publishes Elle worldwide. That kind of friendship places Sheikha Mozah right at the intersection of high fashion, elite media, and global business. Yet people who have spent time with her say there's a surprisingly down-to-earth side beneath the diamonds and diplomacy. Brazilian writer Nélida Pignon, for example, invited Sheikha Mozah to the prestigious Brazilian Academy of Letters in Rio de Janeiro. She later described her as very elegant, deeply interested in culture, but also unexpectedly relaxed and approachable. Instead of insisting on a private luxury dining room, Mozah apparently preferred to eat at a traditional comida por kilo restaurant, where you pay by the weight of your plate and serve yourself. For a woman of her rank, that kind of choice stands out. At the same time, not everyone is charmed. Critics, particularly those who are skeptical of Qatar's political system, accuse her of helping shape her son Tamim's rise and question just how much influence she wields behind the scenes. Others argue that despite her personal freedoms and global platform, she has not done enough publicly to challenge restrictions on women's rights at home, especially given the guardian system that still governs many Qatari women's lives. In their view, someone with her position could push harder. What even those critics rarely dispute is that Sheikha Mozah has used her power consistently to build Qatar's education and cultural footprint. She is extremely well-educated herself, holding a degree in sociology and a Master of Arts in Public Policy and Islam from Hamad bin Khalifa University's Qatar Faculty of Islamic Studies. On top of that, she has received honorary doctorates from major Western institutions, including Virginia Commonwealth University, Texas A&M, Carnegie Mellon, Imperial College London, and Georgetown University. Those connections are not just decorative, they reflect a long-term strategy. In 1995, the same year her husband took power, the Qatar Foundation for Education, Science, and Community Development was founded. She has been at the heart of it ever since. Through that foundation, Qatar has brought famous universities into Education City on the outskirts of Doha, branch campuses of places like Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service and Weill Cornell Medical College. The idea is to build a knowledge-based future for Qatar, reduce dependence on oil and gas, and position Doha as a regional hub for education and research. Her focus on schooling goes beyond bricks and mortar. In 2003, UNESCO appointed Sheikha Mozah as a special envoy for basic and higher education, recognizing the role she was already playing in promoting reforms and raising access to schooling in her own country and abroad. She was also directly involved in launching the Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra, another piece of the wider cultural project that has seen Doha fill up with museums, galleries, and performance spaces it simply didn't have a few decades ago. All of that came together under the spotlight during the 2022 World Cup. For many viewers around the globe, this was their first sustained look at Qatar, its skyline, its rules, its rulers. And Sheikha Mozah was right there at the center of the imagery, both on the pitch and in the cultural programming around the tournament. Behind the scenes, she oversaw a wave of major art installations and exhibitions timed to coincide with the World Cup, using the world's attention to showcase Qatari and regional creativity. At the opening ceremony, she chose an outfit that carried more meaning than most people realized at first glance. She wore a custom Prada dress paired with a winged brooch from Chomé. It was a striking look on its own, rich, structured, and unmistakably royal, but there was symbolism stitched into it. This was the same combination she had worn back in 2010 when Qatar first made its bid for the World Cup. By repeating the look 12 years later on opening night, she drew a direct line between the moment Qatar asked for the world's biggest sporting event and the moment it finally arrived. That is Sheikha Mozah in a nutshell. Nothing is accidental. The fashion, the jewelry, the speeches about education, the Harvard and Georgetown partnerships, the Harrods and Valentino acquisitions, the art projects during the World Cup, all of it fits into a carefully crafted image of a small but rich monarchy that wants to be seen as cultured, modern, and powerful. Whether you see her as a genuine reformer within a rigid system, the master image maker of a controversial regime, or a complex mix of both, there's no denying that Sheikha Mozah has become one of the most influential royal women of her generation. She occupies a unique place, a mother of a reigning emir, a wife of a former ruler, a global fashion icon, and a driving force behind Qatar's push into education and culture. For royal family watchers, she is endlessly fascinating because she embodies so many contradictions at once: strict modesty with daring couture, enormous privilege alongside talk of equality through education, and progressive branding atop a state that still enforces deeply conservative laws. If you enjoy deep dives into powerful royal women like Sheikha Mozah, their lifestyles, their influence, and the controversies around them, make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned. There's always more happening behind palace walls than we see at first glance.